And I'm so excited to have him on this episode of Honestly Kidding because he's somebody with a really raw story that you are all going to hear. And I'm excited to hear because I actually know nothing about him. I think this is the first time we meet.
That's
So
right.
so what did
As
you
far as
think
we
of
know.
me when you when you just met me 5 minutes ago?
I I mean I didn't really. I'm gonna find out. We're gonna find out. I'm
We're gonna
finding out
find
right
out.
now.
Did
Yeah.
you expect anything? Were you nervous?
No, no, not really. I mean, I'm nervous because I haven't really done an interview like in a long time. I think, or yeah, I haven't done an interview in a long time. At least not a formal interview like this,
But
right?
I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank
I've
you.
heard that you
I'm
have an
excited to be here.
insane story. So let me start off with this. Why do you call yourself, or why do people call you Skinny or Skinny the Fatso? I think it's so
So
creative.
yeah, so actually that came about because so I make music, right? So I'm an artist and I make music. I write. I do all kinds of different things across the art. I actually do physical art as well. But what happened is that I used to actually go by my artist name back at the beginning was Da Vinci, which is
Oh,
very interesting, right? So
okay. Are
back when
you?
I first started like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna have an artist name" in the first place, we. Well, what happened is all my friends would call me like, "Oh, you're like Da Vinci, you're like Da Vinci," because of that, because of all the
Mhm.
arts, and I would always like to read, and I was all the science stuff that I like to be into, and nothing. So that name stuck with me for a little while, and then what happened was is that actually after going away, I had after like kind of stepping out of the game for a little bit, I had a buddy of mine kind of come up to me one day and be like, "Hey, you know that a good friend of his was called Da Vinci," and that was kind of like so. I guess at that time, I don't know if this must have been like maybe like early 2000s. I was like. I was like, yeah, cool, whatever, he was like, and it's funny. One of my boys, Lions, shout out to Lions, who's also an artist, was like, yeah, he doesn't care. He knows that you're also Da Vinci, and I was just kind of like, nah, you know what? It's cool. Like, I'll change the name, because I think like back then there was like that mentality, especially when you're younger, like, oh, like how are we gonna beef it out?
Right.
Are we gonna
Yeah.
like rap it out to see who keeps the name? But I had heard so many good things about this artist named Da Vinci that I was like, no, it's cool. Let him keep it. So Skinny comes about because with my partner, a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends, um, D Notes, who's another artist, we had written a song, and in that song there's a line that's like flashy, natural, skinny the fat, so
Oh.
aphrodisiac, the Cuban cracker you asked for. So that name, Skinny
So
the
you're Cuban.
yeah, I am
Okay.
Cuban. So my parents are Cuban. I was actually born in Caracas, Venezuela,
Okay. Oh
and I
wow.
was raised here in Miami.
Okay.
We came here at 7 years old. But so that name comes about from that line. It's actually a line in a song
That you wrote.
that we wrote together, that me and D
Nice.
wrote together.
Okay.
That and then that line is one of the bars, right? It's one of like the punchline, flashy, natural, skinny, the fats. And in the process of that whole like figuring out a new name, which like a million things came to mind, like Versa and everything and whatever, all these algorithm and all these one names that I was looking for when I had made the decision to kind of leave that Da Vinci name.
Right.
Skinny the Fatso kind of stood out just because I thought it was comical, and with all the rappers having like really like
No.
hardcore names, like
Yeah.
yeah, like Big J or whatever, I was like, I think Skinny the Fatso is kind of funny,
It
and
is
it's
really.
and it's diffusing, like if you tell somebody you're a rapper and you're like, my name's Skinny the Fatso, they're like, oh my god, Skinny the Fatso, how funny, and then like. But then I guess the double meaning of that is like because I've always kind of been skinny, but my boy D has always been like I consume everything like a fat person. You know what I'm saying? I know. Right? I'm saying that's wrong. Consume in
I
abundance.
thought it was because you
As
like to eat or you enjoy to
so
eat
so
a
right,
lot.
like
Yeah.
so basically my boy D has always been stronger or bigger than
Okay.
me,
Hmm.
and I would match him on the amount of consumption of food that we would eat.
And maybe energy as well.
And I guess, so that was kind of where the Skinny the Fatso comes around. It
It's
was kind
definitely
of
creative. I'll give you that.
thank you.
Yeah, even when Randy introduced me to your story and he was like, "Oh, my boy, Skinny the Fatso," and I was like that's his actual name.
Yeah.
He's like, that's what he goes by.
Right.
But it just stuck for me, and now I will never call you Vic. I will always call you Skinny the Fatso.
You could come, yeah, or
Skinny.
skinny.
Let's
Skinny's
go
cool.
with Skinny.
Yeah.
So where does your journey begin? Let's go back a little bit so we get to know you a little bit more. Where does
Okay.
your journey start?
Um, if I mean, see, when you tell me to go back, I'll start trying to think of like, I'll think of like when my mom said I was, you know what I'm saying, coming out of my mother's womb.
Okay, let's.
No, right? Um,
Not that far. More as like How does your journey begin in terms of like to get here to where you are now, to the life you currently have now?
Okay. Well, I mean, well, like I said, I'm my parents are Cuban, and I was born in Venezuela, which is funny because we were just talking about like that beginning journey. It's
Yeah.
because there's actually a funny story behind it, and it's that just really quick. My mom always said that when I was born, you know how they're supposed to like spank the baby so
Yeah.
that the stuff come out, like that I came out laughing, so that they never
Oh.
got to spank me, and I was already laughing. So
Okay.
that's part of the beginning of the story. But yeah, so I mean, my parents left Cuba obviously because of the
Yeah.
situation in Cuba. They went to Venezuela. I was born there, and then eventually they left Venezuela because of how Venezuela
Right.
got. For the same, like it kind of just followed suit. And I would say that coming to right to where I'm at, I think that it does go back to being young, because I think like even
Yeah.
from being really young, I've there's always been like this like I would say like this intense or this like extreme part of my character
Right.
that has always I think that has always had an impact on my overall character, right? In the sense that I've always been attracted to like I guess like uh, being fast and learning like being
Learning quickly,
yeah,
being
like
ahead of the game.
just being and the word I really wanted to say was like being mischievous, you know what I'm saying?
I
Or
feel like
like
you're a person who grew up quickly
I
as
think
well.
I threw myself to grow up quickly. It's funny you say
Okay.
that. I feel like I from very young I was like I need to experience everything. I need to experience all these different things,
Whether
good,
good or
bad.
bad.
Yeah,
Right.
because I felt like that what was going to give me perspective on all these different things that like people talk about, and they also talk about like, oh, well, you don't know about this, and it's like, well, I do know about that.
Because you
I
experienced
did it
it.
forcefully almost, to
Right.
be honest with you. I kind of forcefully did that. So I mean, to getting to where I'm at right now, I think just growing up, I grew up in Miami. I was basically I came in when I was 7 years old. Um, I would say I've always had a passion for art. Even in school, like um, in writing, in music, um, and but to be fair, I've also been very interested in just learning overall in general. I went to I went to school here. I went to Emerson Elementary, then I went to West Miami Middle School, then I went to Coral Park Senior High. I got kicked out of Coral Park a bunch of times. Ended up going to Braddock, then ended up going to West State Institute, and so I think that um, getting to this point now has been a culmination of of like having experienced all these different things through school and through life,
Right.
and at some point making a decision, like a conscious decision to like I'm going to pursue music and
And that's
entertainment.
what you do now. Entertainment is what fuels you.
Correct.
It's what makes you happy.
Correct.
And that's currently where you're at.
That's currently where I'm at.
That's amazing.
Is yeah.
I mean, you're in the right place because we interview a lot of people who, follow entertainment.
Right.
And I think people in entertainment have really, really cool personalities and are different in the way that they see life.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
They have a different outlook on life and they also have lived differently.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and you definitely seem to have lived differently a little bit
I think that
based on what you're telling me.
absolutely, absolutely. I think we've all obviously
Yeah.
have done have our stories, right, and have our experiences, and yeah, in my particular case, it's funny because I feel like I'd add to the fact that I'm a Gemini, which I know it's not going to be very popular with a lot of people already. They hate us. I don't know why they hate us Gemini so much. We're the best.
Geminis have different personalities. It's like I'm no astrologer, but I've heard it's like so my stepdad's a Gemini, and ever
Oh.
since I grew up, he always was like 1 minute he was like happy, and then the next he could get bothered. It was like a mixture of personalities
Yeah.
all in one. Because I think they're twins if you look at the astrology side
Yeah.
of it. So there's different emotions in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's funny because you get that rap that like, oh, they're two-faced or they're double-sided. I think it's more double-sided or two
Right.
extremes than
Okay.
necessarily being like two-faced, right? Like in the bad sense
I
of the
don't
word.
think it's. I don't think it's two-faced. I think
Yeah.
maybe more extremes than.
Yeah, so
what you're
that's been
saying.
so like I was saying from very young. That's been a very dominant thing in my character. Like I've always felt like I've aimed for the extremes of
Yeah.
everything that I've done. Um, I can say that again, getting to this point here, I remember growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut, like in school. Yeah, that's what I was like. I want to be an astronaut mixed with like some sort of like military, like a military astronaut.
Because why not?
Yeah, right. Because why not? And science was always like my thing. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, scientific, and so what really happened is that, to be honest, is like I got into a lot of things in high school. Like I was very easy. I got carried away with like the fast life with girls, and I started smoking weed
That's fine.
and doing all the things
Yeah.
that you're kind of maybe not the very
Not
smartest
supposed
things,
to do,
not supposed to
but
do in high
it
school.
taught you.
But they were, it was what it was, right? It was the party life. I was attracted to that fast life,
Right.
and
But it's part of your story. It's part. Or what
it's
makes
definitely
you.
part of the story. It's a big part of the story, I would say. I think coming to and a part of what attracted me to the fast life, I would think, is coming here to America from Venezuela and watching my parents struggle the way that they did, like in order to sustain me and my brother, and that kind of immediately just like felt like there was an affinity to fast money, and just like trying to figure it out
When you say
in
fast
unconventional ways.
money, do you say doing things and so not your regular 9 to 5 job?
Correct.
More okay.
Yeah, I just felt like I would see them do that, right? So
Okay.
that's something like you're like, okay, you get here, and I would
I
see
can
my
100% see that.
yeah, I would see my mom just work all day, and my
Yeah.
dad work all day, and we're like not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to be like, all right, this is not gonna work like this.
Yeah.
We got to figure out some other kind of fucking way to do
So
this.
you're like, what can I do that makes me the money fast, that gets me out of
Yeah.
here? Not well, also, I imagine at that point you were young. So you're not
Yeah.
thinking about the repercussions that all this can bring. And you're just like, at that point, you're like, I don't want to struggle. I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
I want to, make the money and get out of certain situations just so I can be comfortable.
Correct. Which was obviously ignorant at saying like in middle school thinking I'm gonna sell weed, whatever, or
Everyone
or
makes
doing
mistakes,
something like
so
that.
do not feel
Right.
feel bad
Thank
about
you.
it. Everyone makes mistakes.
So
Some of the most famous people in the world, just to put it out there,
of course.
have done it.
So that's kind of the thing, right? That you kind of I guess growing up in the '90s, and I would say also, you're a product of a little bit of your environment. I think that a lot of the
Yeah.
kids in my neighborhood, in my circle, the kids that I was
100%.
attracted to, as far as like character wise, had that mentality too.
Did you ever feel like peer pressured in those scenarios where you had friends in that environment that were like, hey, Vic, or hey, Skinny, like, let's, I'm doing it. This is easy. I think you could do it too.
I think it was. I think it wasn't necessarily peer pressure. It was more like, for lack of a better word, it was like camaraderie. Like,
Okay.
like somebody, like the older cats were doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so you know what I'm saying. So you see them doing things, and then they got younger brothers, and those brothers are like they're my age, and we're just like, yeah, we could do this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like let's do that, or let's jump into that category of things, because that's what you see other other people that are doing that.
For how long were you in that behavioral pattern of
I
that
think
lifestyle?
for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's the part that gets you, right. Like once you get into that kind of lifestyle,
It's hard to get out.
It's hard to get out, because with that comes everything else I was saying. It's like the girls, the partying, the drugs, and then that you just get wrapped up with that.
Did you ever get caught?
I did several times.
Several times. What did that teach you?
I think at the beginning it would teach you like, so it's funny you say that. It's so back to that, like how you're saying, how did I get here? I think, like I said, I in high school I was like, I had like this whole thing planned out. I was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be like this, I'm gonna hang out with these niggas, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I talk like that. So it is what it is, but because it's really how we grew up here. You know what I'm saying? Here in Miami, that's how we grew up. That's how we've always identified with one another, and that's what it is. But so I think that so what did you learn at the beginning was like you just felt like you got caught. I think when we were young. So what I was gonna say was that once I got caught, I felt like that's what kind of flipped the switch to being like, okay, I'm gonna go and be a full-fledged artist. Because in my mind, the mentality was like, in getting in trouble with the law, like I had lost those opportunities
Right.
that I had originally had planned for, like being an astronaut or like doing this thing, which was again was immature and short-sighted back then. It just felt like that's what happened. Like, no, now you have a record. Now you've been in the system, and um and that kind of led to being like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like go into this thing all
How
the way.
long were you, if I may ask, how long were you in the system for?
So So I mean, so what happened is like I guess again back to like it all started very young. So being
Yeah.
in middle school already, it was like hip hop was like the major thing, right? Like it was rap music, it was Tupac, Biggie,
I
all the
love
artists,
Tupac.
right? All the artists, DMX, you know,
Yeah.
all the artists that I would say shaped my character,
Right.
um, and that kind of so then that time there was also like the five elements of hip hop. There was like, which is funny because that's like dead now. It feels like it's dead, but it was like breakdancing, graffiti, you know, like the
You're
knowledge.
giving me a lesson because I was born in '96, so I feel like
Right,
I'm a different
right. So listen, so the
so you
'90s
are
were the
definitely
coolest.
schooling me.
Yeah,
You're definitely because I didn't live the '90s the way you experienced it. So,
right.
but I have heard crazy stories about it.
I'm telling you, the '90s were, and it's not for nothing, but
Yeah.
it was a really cool era because I think that there was a lot of I think we it was a different there was a different vibe between that culture, what is
Yeah.
now the hip hop culture, and even in society and the way that we like the way that we were a part of that culture in the 90s is different. It feels different than how that culture is now.
So you're telling me that definitely the culture of the '90s shaped who you were as a young adult.
Completely,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, you know, so
I can see that. I mean, like you said, you're a product of your environment,
yeah,
and environments come with good and bad.
they come with good and bad,
Hmm.
absolutely. So, you know, like I guess again, so that kind of mentality spread across so many different things
Yeah.
in school. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like I was into skating. Again, we were into the five elements of hip hop. It was like the graffiti. So you asked what happened. I think the first time I ever got arrested, I got arrested for graffiti. You know what I'm saying? I had done I had like what we call bombed. I had bombed like all of like Bird Road. You know, it was like me and a buddy of mine had like literally. I think we.
Listen, some graffiti work is insane.
It's
I've seen some
insane, right?
graffiti
Yeah, yeah.
work that is insanely amazing.
Yeah, and there was some good, there was some very popular dudes during that time that were famous, and again, would probably were inspirational to the younger cats
To
to be
you,
like, yo, we
okay.
want to be like them. You know what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah.
was dope. So I think it was triggered off with that and getting like roped off for like doing graffiti, and then nothing like I think that so during that time I was like smoking cigarettes. People would smoke a cigarette. I think I got arrested for smoking cigarettes like twice.
You got
Arrested
wait, you got arrested for smoking a cigarette?
in school. Like yeah, like you would get like pulled over and you'd get like a ticket. I think we didn't go to arrested like where they took us to juvie the graffiti thing. Like we
Right.
went to juvenile, to the
Okay.
JCC or whatever down here, what they used to call the Jack. But they like the police would stop you and then you'd get like written up and you'd have an actual charge for possession of tobacco
Oh.
as a minor, which is
Okay.
still on
Well,
which
okay.
is still on my record. Go figure. It's still like somewhere in there.
I'm pretty sure if they look at your record, I think that's the last thing they're gonna like. Be
Yeah.
like, hey, what? As a kid, he smoked a cigar.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't
Right.
think you have to worry about that one.
No, I don't. But that like it did snowball, So it did spiral. Like from that, like you kind of got like I said, you kind of and it's funny because I think that there was almost like a subconscious desire not to get arrested or be in trouble, but to not be afraid of that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? To not be afraid of that. To be like, yo, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want, and it is
And
what
you
it is.
kept up that attitude, and I feel like this is a great learning experience for a lot of young adults now and age because sometimes that idea of like being cool
Yeah.
doesn't matter what happens, the repercussions come later.
Right.
Where at that moment, even if it does happen, you're just like, I'm gonna keep going. No
Yeah.
one can stop me.
Yeah, you know what? A bunch of times after those, like for example, that started a bigger, much a more intense
Yeah.
dive into that world, right?
Yeah.
I just told you the beginning that how it all started basically, like
Mm-hmm.
in high school, right? Like getting arrested for graffiti with me and a buddy of mine, and
So it got darker for you.
it got darker. It got more serious, right? As you get older, things got more serious. But what I think as far as like being young and thinking like that, it was. I mean, you lost the fear of it, right?
Yeah.
You lost the fear of what it would be because it was like, all right, you go to jail, you spend a few days, whatever, this and that, and then you just came back out and you were still on it, and
Yeah.
still on that vibe. After that, it was like, then finally, I think like living like that, I think that drugs became a bigger issue. So
Yeah.
drugs, I'll be honest, like drugs are bad. You know what I'm saying?
Did you become addicted?
Yeah, I
at any
did.
point?
I did. I think like I sold like in the process of selling
Right.
drugs, then you become addicted to them.
Right.
And I say drugs are bad. I don't mean like drugs are bad. I don't want like I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, drugs should be banned or none. I think that so
You're entitled to your opinion.
yeah, no,
Whatever.
absolutely. But honestly, I think that drugs in a controlled environment, which how the hell do you do that? Like they do offer, and God forgive me for saying that, but there is some sort of a mind traveling perspective that happens, right? And I'd say like from weed to all the other harder drugs, but you run the risk of addiction, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But do they? And like it's such a toss up. Like you know what I'm saying? Like for
Yeah.
me. Like many people that were my age were like, oh no, I'll never get addicted, or I'll never go through that, or I'll never this. And sure enough, you
Yeah.
did. And then little did you know that you were now using certain drugs every weekend. I mean, during that era, it was like, cocaine was rampant, ecstasy was rampant, everywhere was just hitting. So it was like, and we were partying. You know what I'm saying? So those things kind of led to just like more bad decisions, leading up to maybe getting arrested when I was like 17 for like a heavier charge, like for like armed robbery and gun possession and stuff like that.
So
I saw your face go, whoa!
so
No, I'm just kidding.
So it goes
Yeah.
wild. So
It goes wild. It goes wild. And during that time, I was also, on the same note, I was also like an honor student. I was making music. You know what I'm saying? I went to high school with like Pitbull.
So
He was there in high school. It was like
So even though it was almost like you were living two worlds.
Completely.
On one hand, you were just being a wild
absolutely
young adult,
completely out of
doing
control.
everything everybody tells you not to do.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you were doing what you were supposed to do. So you
Trying
were
to.
trying to. But that's crazy that you told me that, because not everyone. So it's usually one environment or the other, right?
Right.
And those two don't usually cross over. You're either doing this or you're doing the other one.
Right.
So the fact that you were able to do both shows
I was
that,
trying to hold on. I was trying to hold on
to your identity.
I was trying to
At
hold
that
on
point?
to not to.
Did
to,
you feel lost at that point? I feel like throughout that process, did you feel like you didn't know who you were?
I think I've tried to give myself the like I've tried to think that I could do it all.
Okay.
That's really what was going on.
Okay.
Like I thought, like how they say you're too smart for your own good. Like I was like, I could do this and this and this
Yeah.
and handle that. And in that process, you lose control and those things happen. So I mean that led up to like exactly like during high school, I was already like writing stuff and writing music and being involved again in that culture, right?
Was college ever part of your plans? Going to college?
It was before I got arrested.
Before your life changed and took that.
Yeah,
path.
before I kind of like got that like arrested, literally arrested.
Okay. So when you got arrested, and how long were you in jail for?
I mean, so
On and off?
I was on and off. So like
Okay.
at 17, I got arrested for like
Right.
what I mentioned, right? And I got into so in high school I got into like again different crowds, different people. Like I had,
Yeah.
it's funny because I had homies that were like super like good and they were like trying to do the thing, and then I had other homies that were like
Yeah.
stealing cars and literally and selling drugs, like doing stuff like that more heavily.
How long? Let me be more specific. How long did this period last in your life?
I would say it lasted for the better part of my 20s.
So for the better
part of my
20s.
late teens and 20s. Yeah. So at 17 I got arrested and I didn't come out till I was 21.
Okay.
So I spent literally 4 years. That's it. Like you got caught up in the system.
You got caught up in the system.
That's it. I was in the system. I got charged with a capital offense, basically a charge
Right.
that was like carrying a life sentence.
Wow.
And then you kind of at that point you're at the mercy of whatever the system kind of
So
threw your
at
way
20
and your financial ability to provide for like lawyers and shit like that.
From
obviously.
21, did you go back in or no?
So yeah, so I get out at 21. So during that time, so during that time that I ended up getting arrested when I was 17, which was with a buddy of mine. Again, like we got into some shit, ended up,
Yeah.
ended up in a stolen
It's
car,
okay, you don't
ended
have
up,
to be specific.
and yeah,
Don't
whatever.
worry about it.
So then that turns into
Yeah.
me going into like rehabs and doing time, like a mixture of doing time and rehab. So a cool
In
story.
and out.
In and out, right? Well, it was all like part of that whole sentence of
Okay.
like
So all
you have
of
to
your
do
20s.
rehabs, you have to do time, you have to do whatever. No, a cool
So it
part
was like
during
a
that.
cycle.
Well, for those 4 years.
Yeah.
For those 4 years, that's just the beginning,
Okay.
That was actually really just the beginning of like the real down like hill.
So what is?
I'm
so-
sorry to me. It's
All
not,
right. So let's go into the real downhill. You're a kid now. You're out. Okay. And what's that real downhill? What was that moment where you were just like, okay, I'm in this. Like
That's
messed
it. Once
up,
I got
I'm-
that charge, I was like, fucking thug life. Fuck this shit. It was
So
like.
then at that point you were just like, this is the only path I have for myself.
No. So I didn't give up then completely.
didn't?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. I just
I'm
thought.
glad to hear that.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here now because I
Yeah.
didn't give up. It's very important not to give up. Like, no, I always thought like I could figure out a way to turn it around, right? I just kind of had to deal with it, figure out another way to like do that. So during that time, interestingly enough, I was actually with a girl,
Yeah.
who's now my wife,
Wow.
right? Who's now my wife, and during that time we were together. During that time that I was in high school and getting in trouble and all these
Yeah.
things, and actually when I end up getting locked up at 17, that I get sentenced, and I'm like, I'm going away, like I'm gonna do some time.
Yeah.
During that time, I actually still in my trying to be the slickest person on the planet, figure out a way to like when I get out and they send me to like this rehab or whatever, I figure out a way to see this girl by creating basically a distraction at the facility, and I escape the facility and end up meeting up with her and getting her pregnant during this time, right?
So how old were you when you got her pregnant?
I was 18. I had just turned 18.
So wait, while you were in jail, she got
During
pregnant.
that sentence, I get out at a rehab and I fake a medical emergency and go to a place
to see her.
to
happened.
actually to Jackson Memorial Hospital. I fake a medical emergency at this facility. They send me to Jackson Memorial Hospital
Okay.
with some like basically guards, and in that place I had her meet me there, where I then escape into the corridors of Jackson, and we end up.
How old was she?
So I was 18. She was 18.
Wow.
When she was
So how was that for you? What she tells you, I'm pregnant. You're basically, you have your hands like this because
Right.
you're like, I'm finishing a sentence.
It was all planned by me. I intentionally.
You intentionally got her pregnant?
Yeah, it was the whole plan the whole time.
Did wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, I love this girl, and I was like, I
You
know.
loved her, but okay.
was like,
but
we're gonna
did
do
you
this.
You guys wanted to have a kid?
She was
at that
actually.
point?
I mean, I was 18. To be fair, I was 18.
So this
she
was
still
a planned baby.
Yeah, I mean, we were together since we were 16. So it was 16, 17. I turned 18. She's still 17, right? So then she's 17 during this process. She ends up, this was a planned baby by me, which till this day she'll be like, I can't believe you did that to me.
So
yeah.
okay, so a planned baby by you, but not by her.
Well, no, I mean, I mean, that wasn't the, I mean,
That
I'm
wasn't-
telling you the inside scoop. The
Okay,
inside scoop
you
is
wanted-
that I knew I was like, I'm going to get this girl pregnant. That's going to be my girl. We're going to
This-
have a baby.
You
You
were
know?
like, she is not leaving me. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
she's
be in
not.
jail.
Yeah, I'm gonna lock her down.
For 4 years. I'm locking
Yeah,
her
it
down,
was-
and she's gonna wait for me. I mean, that's kind of wicked in a way, but
Right.
props to, I mean, you guys have been together for this long, so
Well, I mean,
she
it-
did love you. You loved her. It worked out
During
for
that
you.
time, right? So that it actually became a difficult thing because you're asking me like, how did it get
That-
worse? It did get worse because so now I have a girl that's pregnant while I'm in a
So
basically
not-
a work release slash
And not
like
a normal situation.
not a normal situation, and now I've created more problems for myself because this
100%.
place that knows that I'm not supposed to be seeing anyone from the outside, I'm now bringing in. There's a girl coming to visit me at this facility that is
So
pregnant.
this happened. So she visits you while you're in rehab.
While
after jail.
like after.
Were you in rehab and jail at the same time?
No, so I go to jail.
You go to
I would
jail,
go to
then you
jail.
go to rehab.
I'm in jail for like about a year or so, and then part of the sentencing
Was you had
is
to go to
to
rehab.
do a rehab followed
Okay.
by like probation and community
Okay,
control
so
and house
there's
arrest.
a lot of things that go after that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like things
So you
that go
get
on
her
with being
pregnant.
innocent. Right.
Does this child change and make you realize, hey,
I thought it would.
I have to get my shit together.
I thought it would.
Even though you're young, you're put in a situation that's
I wasn't ready.
normal.
I wasn't ready.
No,
so it ends.
Even though you planned it.
Yeah, I planned
but
it.
You
I
weren't
planned
ready.
it. I wasn't, because again,
But
in all fairness, I always had the right intention. Like I thought, like, okay, well, I'm gonna get this girl pregnant. I'm gonna finish this rehab. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna get out of here. We're gonna get together. We're gonna like try to build a life. I'm gonna pursue this music. I'm gonna pursue this thing.
Right.
But it didn't work out like that. On the contrary, the facility.
Life has a funny way of working out.
Yeah. On the contrary, the facility kind of violated my probation because of those actions, and I ended up going back to jail.
Oh my goodness! So
I go back to jail, do another year. The baby's literally born 2 weeks.
So you weren't there for the birth of your child.
I was in jail. I was in jail when the birth of my child.
That was
Actually, we did a whole thing to see if I can get like a release to go be there for the birth, and the baby was born like 2 days after. Like I was forced to go back into the.
So I'm guessing in this scenario, her parents must have helped, or your parents monetarily.
This was a complete disaster.
So okay, let's put financially, you guys are in a very bad spot.
We're in no spot.
In no spot.
Yeah.
So how are you guys making this work with your situation?
Fucking love and dreams. Love and.
But I mean, a baby's gotta eat. A baby's gotta.
Well, yeah, no, whatever that happened. She ends up like moving in with my mom. Like my mom, like her family. Our families kind of try to.
I imagine you had
try
to
to help her out
right?
in this situation.
Because I imagine at that point nobody wanted to.
Yeah.
Be like, oh yeah, no opinions on your end.
No, of course not. On the contrary, like I think everybody was probably like,
it's time to grow.
you gotta let this guy go, right?
Yeah.
But she held on. She held on as long as she could. I mean, I did another like year in jail. I ended up going back to the facility, to the rehab. I get out. We end up moving in together, and again, I wasn't ready, and I ended up like violating my probation again, which then
put you back in jail.
Which put me back in jail for like another year.
Okay.
So that's why all this whole thing that I'm telling you took like it was over the course of 4 years. I didn't really see the street.
Okay.
It was like from jail to like work release / whatever, like rehab, back to jail, back to the work release, back to jail again, and then we finally break up. Actually, me and her end up breaking up.
So how old are you when you guys separate?
I'm 21 years old, and we finally were like.
So this all happened from 17 to 21. You have lived an entire movie.
Completely.
World.
Yeah, and this is the short story of it, of course, right?
A crazy journey of obviously, mistakes, but trying to get better and then falling back and her holding on.
Yeah. That's why the book would take some time to write. There's a lot of details in there I would not want to omit.
So
and it's funny because it sounds like it's very chopped up the way I'm telling it to you,
Yeah, but I mean it's fascinating how you've gotten to.
Thank you.
Through all of that, and then you're here today as you are.
Oh, I can't freaking believe it.
But at the end, it worked out for you, which is amazing. But
so far,
okay, so you're 21.
Right.
Let's retract. So you're 21. What happens after 21? Because I don't want to put you on the spot. How old are you now?
I'm 40. I just turned 40 this year.
So about 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20. This is 20 years ago. Yeah, I got a 21-year-old daughter, Dasani. Shout out to my wife Anna.
Oh, shout out to your wife and your daughter.
My daughter, Dasani. She's incredible. She's in New York doing her thing. Shout out to my son, Machi and Jace.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. With your same wife.
Machi's actually, so what happens at 21, right?
So after 21, let's go on to that.
We could go back. Machi's my stepson.
Okay.
And I have another son that's unknown, somewhere to be found. I have no idea, somewhere. Like, that's another. So that's what actually happens right after 21. If we're gonna go down that route, right?
You meet somebody else.
I get out. Yeah, me and her are broken up. She actually we end up breaking up while I'm in jail. That last time, she comes to see me at the jail with my daughter, and she's like, how are we gonna what's gonna happen with us? And I was just we were both kind of like we gotta let this go because I knew that. Especially now being in jail, I was like, I'm not ready for this.
No,
I knew that I was going to get out and kind of still do.
That is heartbreaking. Especially, I can imagine her.
She was heartbroken. I was heartbroken, but kind of relieved because I felt like I was kind of going to let her kind of like release her from my problems and try to find a better route for her life. Mm-hmm. And she did it. She kind of did like soon after she got with some guy. And they got together, and and then that's what led to my stepson, right? So she gets with some guy, she gets pregnant, and I kind of remove myself from the situation completely. I'm just let me deal with my life and what I have to do.
Where does your story continue after that? Do you continue down
So I get out and I'm just like, yeah, I
that
guess
path?
it's funny. This has turned into like a whole, like, just like what
Just
my prison story is. Because you know what? It's funny because Randy, which is, you know, who put us together on this, mentioned that it is a significant part of my life. So I grew up basically in the county
let's
jail and in prisons and
let's.
in
I
like
want to know
partying
who
through
you are.
Miami.
So let's just
Yeah,
fast
it really
forward
is.
that. So throughout your 20s, you're pretty much discovering your identity.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like so the truth what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out like how do I make sense of everything that I've done and figure out a way to turn all this negative into a positive.
Right.
And that becomes very difficult.
And that is all throughout your 20s.
All throughout my 20s, yeah,
You
absolutely.
spend your time with that. So
In and out, yeah.
In and out, and then throughout that time, where do you, like, how does your life look, financially speaking, with relationships with your family?
It's difficult. I mean, I get out. I'm 21. I immediately I try to start figuring out like how do I get a job and working in whatever place I can. Again, very soon and right after that, it turns into the fast life again. Like like women have always come very easy, and it's Miami, right? And actually, right after that, like I end up getting another girl pregnant in the midst of all of this. I end up marrying some other girl.
I want to watch your movie.
Oh, good. It'll be made. It will be
Okay.
made. Actually, in the midst of all this, I start trying to figure things out. Yeah, like, I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna start.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's make some music. So actually, that's when the music thing kind of really starts.
So do
you know that?
just start writing? How old are you when you decide, okay, music is, you always knew the arts were for you.
Yeah.
But specifically music. How old are you when you start writing?
I would say when I got locked up that time at 17.
That's when you start.
I spent my 18th birthday in jail, right? So I literally, I was like, okay, like I have this major charge hanging over my head, this like severe like record like now.
Right.
And I'm like, there's like, I'm just gonna fucking do this thing that I know how to do.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm gonna start writing. So while I was locked up right here in Metro West Detention Center, I start writing music. I start actually like putting more focus into it. And in that process of writing, I actually realized that shit was fresh, and a bunch of niggas in there were like, "Yo, this shit's dope. This shit's gangster." You know what I'm saying? I like it. All you know what I'm saying. A bunch of the people, bunch of homies that I would associate with, were like, "Yo, you got some bars. Like this is fresh." And when I get out, I'm 21, and my dog D Notes, my boy Damien.
Oh, I thought you. Did you say your dog?
My dog, yeah, my
Oh,
dog,
your
yeah, my
dog,
dog,
oh,
like my
your
homie,
friend,
like my dog
okay.
D. He actually his uncle was actually working for a Spanish television station down here.
Nice.
And
Okay.
I had shown them the music that I had done in there, and they were like, "Yo, you think you could write something in Spanish?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
So you wrote it.
I wrote something in Spanish, which is this song called Ahora. I started writing this song called Ahora along with D. I was like, "D, what's up?" Because
So you give me like 2 beats.
it was es la hora de llegar, vamos a vacilar, and it was like, "El que nació para martillo del cielo le caen los clavos, así que yo," right? So it's actually, that song is actually out now. We just put it out like maybe like last year.
Nice.
Because it's a song like about Cuba.
Okay.
So what happened was
I'm Cuban, by the way.
Okay, so yeah, okay.
So I have to listen to it.
I honestly feel like I should be asking you a bunch of questions and like, who's this person interviewing me?
It's like I put him on the detention chair. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
So my dog D was like, "Yo, this shit's dope," and he kind of mentions it to his uncle who was working at a television station. I think he was working for like America TV or like Telemundo or one of those things, and he was working for this guy's show, Mickey Bing.
Okay.
Which,
I'm
you know who is
familiar
Mickey?
with- yes,
And so
I'm
he had a show called Arriba de la Bola
This is years ago.
years ago. So my dog
Yeah.
D is like, "Vic, why don't
'Cause I
we?"
was a kid when Mickey Bean was like
Yeah.
around.
So he's like, "Yo, let's retrofit this song. Like, let's write a theme song for this guy's show, for this guy's television show, and maybe my uncle could get it on there." And in that process, actually, D was like working like whatever, like some odd job or whatever. And I was like, "Yo, if we're gonna do this, let's do this together." And D has always been very like, he was like in acting, and he's always been very funny. He's always been like the funniest guy in school. He's always been very artistic himself. And in that process, he was like, "Yo, let's do this together." Being that he's been my best friend. He's my best friend. And we kind of like started diving into the music. This is like right there at 21. I had written some stuff in English, and they were like, "Yo, if you can write like this, why don't we write in Spanish?" Sure enough, we write the song. One thing leads to another. We don't end up really using it for that, but we end up writing like another song, and now like all of our friends and people are like, "Yo, you guys are dope. Like,
Right.
this is dope." That was actually, and it's funny because you're talking about that time. This was actually when reggaeton was kind of like
Okay. When
starting
reggaeton
to
was starting to be a thing.
really rise and be a thing.
Okay.
And we were like, let's go for it. And then like as far as like music, the rest is history. We just got addicted to it, and we were like, yo, let's make this music. Let's do this
That's a
thing.
great thing to get addicted
Yeah.
to.
And
so your talent to music, was that your out? I feel like that was your out and your release.
I felt like
from
that
a
was
lot of
like
things, right?
it was like
Do you feel like that saved you in a way?
I feel like not. No, you know what? I'll be honest. I feel like it didn't. It feel like
No?
it didn't. No, it didn't save me. I think it actually
such a-
fueled the madness.
Really?
Yeah, hell yeah. Because now we're like, yo, we're on this
'Cause-
freaking journey, bro. We're gonna just rap and make
cause,
music.
Because everybody needs an outlet, and
Yeah.
I feel like music was that outlet for you. But I guess
It
I'm
wasn't.
wrong.
So yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it was an outlet as
Yeah.
far as like being able to show. It was an outlet that allowed me to show my talent.
Right.
Or my ability to do something well, you know,
Right.
because we were very like lyric oriented, like lyrics and like how is this gonna sound, and we got to be like the hardest lyricist in all of this game and how it's coming, and I think that in that aspect it was an outlet, and the fact that I had already experienced so many things in life allowed me to also then obviously express this like intimate knowledge that I had of like the street and like
And raw
and
raw street knowledge.
right, yeah, like so it was right down the alley of like hip hop. It was like, okay, like I live this, I know what
Yeah.
the fuck this is, I know how to talk about this, and it was just like now putting it in the kind of form that was fresher than everybody out there, right? So that turned into that, but it also came with again that whole world is being at the
So
club and being at the thing.
Life kept dragging you back into
in.
one world.
Yeah, I'll be
Into
honest. You know
one
what? Drugs was a major issue in this.
world. Okay.
I think that if it wasn't because of the propensity to be in that environment, which is like alcohol, drugs,
Yeah.
women, like for me, it was a downfall, like that, because I didn't have no control.
Yeah.
Again, part of my character, that extremeness of my character, it's like I'm going in on everything, and it was like I went in on my music, I went in on, and I've done that in everything. So I'm like that with love, I'm like that with friends, I'm like that with everything. I'm passionate
Would you
about
say
all of it.
you're extremely passionate? Or,
Extremely
yeah?
passionate about
Okay.
everything.
About everything
life,
you do in
about
life.
yeah.
That's not
you know?
necessarily a bad thing. You like to live hard, but you know,
It came with consequences.
it comes with harsh consequences.
yeah,
100%.
being young and not having the ability to control, having the discipline
Yeah.
to control that environment is not good.
So let me ask you a question.
Tell me.
So now you go into your let's say you're in your 30s. Do you feel more stable now once you go into that cycle? Now you're in the next decade of your life.
Yeah.
Do
So
you-
my 20s were like that. Were like so the 20s were on and off. We performed. We did a bunch of music. We did music. I mean, it was fast. It was like
Did you live off that financially? Was it
No.
enough to get you?
No, because at 24 I went back to prison. Actually, so at 24 things. So during those years that we're making music, things actually get crazier.
Okay.
Like I said, I ended up getting married with some chick, a random chick. I ended up having a baby with some other chick who then left to Europe with the baby. I have my daughter with my wife that I'm not with my now wife,
Right.
who was my
Yeah,
the
your
love of my
current
life,
wife,
my high
the-
school sweetheart. Like, you know, me and her are kind of not seeing eye to eye because she's kind of living like a more stable life, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm chasing this music thing. That's kind of always just, you know, like the music world is just like, okay, you're just in like
Yeah.
studios and clubs and partying, and that at least that's what it was for me. That's not what it really is for everyone.
Yeah.
We all know now, you know, that doing anything involved in the arts in a good way
Yeah.
requires discipline and requires like
100%.
attentiveness
Yeah,
and
yeah.
requires focus.
Everything
right?
in life
like we're
requires
doing right
focus,
now. Like
discipline.
back
Yeah.
then, I wouldn't have made this interview, for example. Right? I would have been fucked up somewhere, partying with a bunch of chicks.
Or you would have walked into that door and I would have been like,
Yeah, or I
We'll
would have
talk
walked into the
again
door. And
tomorrow.
it would have been a great. It would have been a great interview. But chances are I wouldn't have walked into the door
Yeah.
because I did have that other side of me that I was like, I don't want that to be what represents what I'm doing, right? Like I knew better. Like my
yeah.
parents they're decent. You know, they're decent people. I think. You know, not I think they are. You know, and I've been intelligent enough to know that some of the things that got me into trouble were not the right. Like I knew that wasn't the right
do
thing
you
to do.
regret any of the things
I don't.
you went through or?
I don't regret it in the sense that all that stuff is like has added up to the person that I am today. So that has given me like an undeniable, in-depth knowledge of a world that has, so that's created like a very empathetic side of me,
Yeah.
like to understand, like again, like, so after that I ended up like messing up again. Like, so that lack of communication with my daughter, because of like the resistance from my
Yeah.
back then baby mama to be like, yo, I don't want you to be involved in that if you're living like this. led to me like spiraling more out of control and like doubling down on my madness. It was like, fuck that. Then I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna make it and figure out a way to come back as like this hero that made it and, and like try to do that. And that just ended up leading into me getting into trouble again and now getting even a more severe punishment
Right.
for things, which led to me going to prison. So, which led to me going to prison for 3 years.
Okay.
And
And
then,
during that time, even in prison, you still made music, though.
so actually, during that time in prison was where I would say I refined my ability to make music like insane. Like I was, yeah, like now I was like,
Music.
I'll
got
be
you
honest with
through
you,
it.
prison, and regardless of what people could say. So this is an interesting thing to like that I would want to talk about for a second is that like prison wasn't bad for me. It was
Okay.
in the sense that people imagine it to be. It was bad. Like so, prison is it's 1,000 times worse than people think. Why? Because you watch a movie about prison, and that was for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You saw what prison is like. When you're in prison, you're living that every second.
Yeah.
So every second that is going on, right? Like somebody's getting beat, somebody's getting raped, somebody's getting took, the guards
Yeah.
are oppressed. The guards are being how you would think guards to be. And it did refine me as my character. It was like do or die. It's like, are you gonna
Yeah.
like it refined me, like it made me like, yo, you gotta kind of conduct yourself in a certain way. If not, you're gonna get
You're gonna die.
yeah, you're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I thrived in that environment in the sense that I did kind of like it like I said, I grew up in there. That's how I grew. Like that was my college. I
that
became a man in there in the sense that I didn't. Yeah.
That had to happen to you so you could be here today
Uh,
talking to me,
what
being a
made-
better father, being a better husband.
It's made me appreciate freedom and being like what you can become, because you can go in there and like learn to become worse, or you can stand up and be like, I'm gonna be this kind of person. And I read like crazy in there. I did have like I was able to carry myself accordingly with like the worst of the worst, let's just say, and some of the greatest people I've ever met. So in that time, I was able to really like, it's interesting. I used that time to become prolific in my writing. So, which is funny because now that being said, you get out from the street and you're like, damn,
What do I do?
I was doing so many things in there. Like I was writing several songs at the same time. You had this like super strong bond with so many different like guys that you were similar to, and that had your same character, whatever that was, whatever strength of character you had. That in there, everything gets very like emphasized. So if you're like this kind of person, that's the kind of person you attract. If you're a sucker, you're gonna freaking be with the suckers. If you're a big dog, you're gonna be with the big dogs. If you're, and that happens, and that kind of gets very resounds in there. So I was able to thrive in there in a way where like I earned my respect in there in many ways. And that then gave me that kind of strength that I was like, if I can make it in here and not become someone's bitch, for lack of a better word, you know what I'm saying? Like I could definitely make it out there. But you run into a very interesting thing when you come out, which is like things don't run like they run in there. They don't run. People are fake more. Like in there, if you fake on something, like that could cost somebody their life. You know what I'm saying? Or that could cost you your life. Mm-hmm. You can't make that mistake. Out here, people make that mistake every day, and just like, who cares? And so that's a very shocking thing to get out, and that's what they call people are institutionalized and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Anyways.
So for you, you turned your life around, and that was the pivotal moment when you turned your life around. Where are you with your mental health at that point? So throughout prison, you had these resources that you were like, okay, that I got prolific in my writing. I had to put that tough mentality because it's what got you through that. But when you get out, you're facing a world that's completely different.
It's so difficult. I'll be honest with you.
It's difficult. So where are you with your mental health, and what really helped you get out of that mindset once you're facing again the real world and you're like, I know I can't do what I was doing because it's not going to work for me. So
well, you don't know that yet. You do know, but it's like I said, it's a shocker. So you get out and you feel like you have such an edge. Believe it or not, you have such an edge. And this doesn't go for everyone. To be fair, like it's not to like. I, I'm grateful for the fact that I was blessed with maybe like a brain that works like significantly, and I was
Right.
able to calculate things accordingly. So that getting out, I was like, okay, I got an edge on society because I knew my ability to be like solid on many things. But again, so then you get out, and so what is the struggle? Yeah, so yeah, you're getting out, and the struggle is like I have nothing. I have
Yeah.
nothing. I have
100%.
a daughter who doesn't know me. I have a baby mama who thinks I'm this menace at this point, right? I have another kid that I don't know. I
So
have a mother that's hoping that I don't continue the life path that I've been doing.
you've hit the lowest point you could possibly hit.
Completely. Yeah, prison is the lowest point that I think any human can possibly hit besides like death. You know, because you're just as good as dead in there, you know, to be
And
honest with you. You know?
now, and how does Skinny face all these things that you've just listed? And you're like, okay, now it's
Not
time to get
losing
my
hope.
life
You know
back.
what? I want to say being optimistic, like feeling like that I could change it. You know what I'm saying? Like looking at it and being like I can be smarter than this. I can get out there, and in spite of all this adversity, I can figure it out. You know, having good. I'll be honest, having a good mom, having a mother that's like, come
So
on, bro, you're smart.
your
Like you can
mom was
figure this
always
out.
with you
Yeah, man, that's
throughout
one thing
everything.
about shout out to moms. Moms, my Aurelio, you know, and my father as well. My father, like even though they were separated, like they both independently were like I think believed in me. Like believed they knew that wasn't
A support
that
system.
yeah, because that wasn't my that's really not I'll tell you like this. You want to like even in prison, like there was plenty of motherfuckers that were like, yo, like what the fuck are you doing in here? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing in here? Like, you're brilliant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and again, I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back or give
But
or
they're basically saying,
yeah,
why are
yeah,
you
like
in
why are
here?
you in here when you're like you have it's clear that you have a different mentality, a
Yeah.
capacity or a capability to do better and not be in this situation.
Yeah.
But the truth is that not really. Like I was also subject to the same things that got them in there, which was like I was highly addicted to a lifestyle,
Yeah.
and very easily like
But you got out.
yeah, I got out, but it went back to that. So like,
Right.
so what happened is that, like you said, you get out, and what are you faced with in this world? Like, I'm faced with like not having a good job because of this thing, right? Trying to figure out how do I make money as now a 20-something-year-old man who's like has to go back to his mom's house to try to like start there somewhere,
Right.
and then all these things against me again. Like I'm not seeing my daughter. So where's my mental health? Is like I fucked up. My mental health is like I fucked
You're
up.
shot.
I'm like, damn, this is gonna be so difficult. So it's like a mixture of like having little spurts of like hope and I'm gonna figure it out to then actually living life and being like, this is fucking impossible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then being easily catapulted back into what I know best, which is like fast women, fast money, partying, and then now struggling with that yet once again, like between like getting fucked up and like trying to maintain a job and trying to figure out how I don't lose my sense of identity, chasing the music. So then immediately it's like the only thing that's gonna get me out of this is like making it in the music or making it with some kind of one of these things that are like if you make it, you kind of blow up, right? You know, because working a 9 to 5, that wasn't gonna happen because I didn't go to college to get a good enough degree to say I'm gonna be a doctor, or I'm gonna be a lawyer, or I'm gonna be an astronaut, or none of these freaking things are gonna happen for me. Now
Yeah.
at this point, that's how I feel like they're not gonna happen for me
Yeah.
because it would take. First of all, even if I did want to go to school for it, when you do, like, no one's gonna hire you with the kind of
Right.
record on paper that I seem to have.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I just felt like it wasn't gonna matter who. Like, I didn't realize that if I really got people, like if people do get to know you, or if you're like the freshest at what you do, like people can maybe overlook your past, right? Because at the end of the day, I wasn't bad, and I didn't do these things as like, oh, I'm just I'm not Scarface, and I'm
yeah.
trying to like be a thug. It was those things happened as a consequence to the lifestyle I was living. It was like kind of like easy
As
to go
products
down
of
that
your
path.
environment.
It was a product of my environment. Like, okay, like I ain't got no money, but somebody says, yo, if we steal this car, nigga, we can get paid. You know what I'm saying? Let's do this. So it's like, okay, so then you like, let's do that because you're gonna make more doing this XYZ thing
No
than
one
you
should
would.
judge you because everybody has made mistakes.
Yeah,
And nobody's perfect.
and to be and in all honesty, my judgment was already cloudy because I was already on drugs again, like in the drugs and alcohol. It was like just like every weekend you're drinking or doing coke or popping pills or doing whatever you're
Yeah.
doing. It's easy to make those bad decisions.
No,
That's why
definitely.
I don't say that I'm against it because those things also. We can be here all day talking about how many awesome and crazy experiences you had partying like that, but the consequences of those actions in my life, particularly, outweighed, like had severe consequences. I know
Right.
guys today that have, I mean, we all probably know people that still get fucked up or do whatever, and they've never had those kind of consequences.
But for you, it wasn't like
It did, and now today I think I'm glad it did, because it put me in those other situations that then allowed me to remove myself from that environment and actually make some actual growth as a man and as a person and as an artist.
And where does that growth come from now? Where have you grown from career wise as a father? What do you tell your kids? And
They know.
And where has
Yeah,
your career gone now?
So that being said, I kept pursuing the music, to kind of keep going. I almost feel like this is like a life. Here's the book. Here's a good part of the life story interview. Nah, just kidding. But like in the pursuit of that music, I kept failing because of those factors,
Those situations.
those particular situations, which then just, and that kind of expounds. It gets heavier and heavier. Like,
Yeah.
damn, I just keep fucking up. Like, I'm not gonna even do this. Like now I'm like, am I gonna spend my life in prison, or am I going to like die?
You've been given two choices.
Yeah.
Am I gonna spend life in prison? Am I gonna die?
Well, that's what it felt like on a day-to-day
Right.
basis, because I would make decisions that would make me go forward 3 steps, like one step, how they say, I would take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backward,
Yeah.
and then it starts to add up. Like people, even your friends and the people that do believe in you are like, this guy's never going to change.
Right, 'cause
Like
you
every
keep
time
repeating the
I
same
keep
mistakes
repeating the
over and
same
over
shit.
again, yeah.
So whatever, I end up going to prison yet again. Yeah, yeah. And then altogether, I end up doing like 10 years in prison. So like I said, I end up doing like,
Throughout your life, all of your 20s.
all of my
let's just
20s,
say.
I spent them in and out of jail or like fucking up. And nothing. So finally, how did that happen? I finally clicked. I think that age and time start to add up, because what happens is that when you're like 20 something, I kept thinking like, oh, I got time to change this. I got time to change this.
Then you realize you don't.
And then I realized I ended up getting locked up. Like in 2014, my father passes away, and I was just like, it hit me hard, and that's when I ended up getting locked up that last time. I kind of like lost. Like I was just like, fuck the world. This is crazy. Like I'm not with my kid. My dad died. I'm not making music. My best friend doesn't believe in me. My mom's like, I'm killing her in the process. And I have a kid that I've never seen once, Another one that I've seen once and not seen and then left, whatever. And I'm just like, I got to change this. So that last time that I went to prison, I was like, I made that decision that I was like, I'm going to get out and I'm going to change. Like, I'm going to stop the madness. And in my case, it was specifically like going back into that fast lifestyle. And it was just like a decision. It was just like a decision that I was like, I'm not going to do this.
So one day you just said, switch
Yeah,
off.
I'm not doing this no more. I'm going to get out and I'm going to figure this out. And I kind of, and forgive myself. That was a big thing. Like, I think that
How
I felt.
did you forgive yourself? Did you do any work for that?
I think that just kind of like really stopping, like, again, just like really observing life and thinking about people. Honestly, you kind of piggyback on like knowing like you're a good person. Like I know, so like everybody that knows me will tell you, like,
look like
Vic
a
is a
great
great
person.
person.
Yeah.
Vic is a good dude. He just fucked up. He made these mistakes.
up.
So like, luckily all my homies and people that I've met, like Randy, D, all these different people that I've met throughout the years have all known that, and I think they've all been rooting for me. Like Vic, you can change it.
We all know people. We all need people who root for us in our corner, because we're not all perfect.
Right.
We're gonna make mistakes. Even in your case, if you made 1,000 mistakes,
Yeah.
you still need that. And I think part of you being where you are today, with your family, with your beautiful wife, with your
Yeah.
kids, in a completely different life from
Yeah.
what you lived, it's partly because of the people who rooted for you.
Yeah.
And also the way
That was a big part of it,
Yeah.
Cynthia, for real.
The-
That was a
and-
big part of it.
and
Like, I
the-
felt like I didn't want to let them down. Like, what a
Yeah.
shame would it be to let these people down and to let myself down, knowing that I had, like, potential and talent, and I was super intelligent.
never
I was
too
like,
late.
bro, this can't be the end.
it's never too late.
Yeah.
You just have to. Sometimes I always think like you have to pivot, and in your case, is what you did. You pivoted.
Yeah.
But this last time you were at ends and you were like, how
Yeah.
do I pivot?
And it was hard. It was hard because I knew that part of that was going to be, like, confronting everyone that has left me for, like, gone.
Did you have deep conversations with everyone?
I have. I mean, I think, what's funny? I think that more than having deep conversations, I kind of shut my mouth a little bit more.
And
It's funny because I
listen.
talk, and I was just like, well, and I just acted.
And you acted.
I
and
acted.
Showed.
It was just like actions. I was like, I'm done talking,
Actions
or like
speak louder than
promising. I'm
words.
done promising people that I'm gonna do good.
Actions speak.
Yeah, I was
louder
just
than
like,
words.
I'm gonna, and actually, so going back to how it all comes full circle, that same girl that I got pregnant back then, we spent 10 years apart, and I had a very light conversation. Like, I barely got to talk to my daughter during those years because we both agreed that it was better that I stay away
Yeah.
than to be in their lives, in her life, with that kind of world that I had around me.
I feel that was the right decision. I don't know too much about
Super hard decision. It was
that.
her. It was what?
It sounds like it was the right decision for you guys at the time, even though
Yeah,
it was hard for you.
yeah, yeah. I have some. It was the right decision. Now looking back, it was the right decision.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because we did the little times that I did get to speak to her, which mind you, this girl that we're talking about is now my wife, which we have another kid now,
Yeah.
and we live together and all this stuff. But it was like I think that her stance was always like, if you're gonna come into your daughter's life and do the things you're doing, you're just gonna break her heart over and over.
Yeah.
And I'd rather her not see you break her heart, like than you just come back when you're ready. And so we spent 10 years literally apart, almost 12, actually it was closer to 12 years. I separated from her when my daughter was 2. And during that time, I went through all these things that we've just spoken about. And in that last time, me getting out of prison, I was just like, I got to get back in my daughter's life before this girl like completely is like, who the fuck are you? And I'll tell you this much, we haven't even mentioned this, but I during that time, during all these years, and it's not because you got to give a shout out to God. Like God was there somewhere. I know it's not very popular today to think about with God and religion. But
I'm a
God,
big believer in God.
me praying and me believing, there was too many things that happened in my life that I was like, God's taking care of me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've said a lot of stuff that has maybe shined a negative light on my life, but as much bad things that I've said, the good have been a million times more. So in all these years that I'm talking about, I mean, I've had significant things happen. Like the music, like in prison while I was making music, like I had that whole prison bumping. You know what I'm saying? Like I was throwing concerts out there and everybody was like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? Like niggas were rooting for me. But niggas were like, yo, Vic, you gonna make it. Like people that had life sentences were like, yo, you gonna get out there and you gonna represent for us that ain't never gonna see the street. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was that kind of, so there was a lot of things that were so enlightening and like special, even in the midst of all that, like all the stuff that I'm talking about with friends, with family, with life, that were just like signs that were just like God's there. And I think, I don't know if, I don't know if we receive the karma here on earth. People say that your blessings come later when you in heaven, but I've seen them here. Like I think that me making those decisions, my intention has never been bad. And like I've always had this like love, like my mom gave me, I think, so much love, like as a kid, that I've loved people. Like this earth could be all right now falling apart,
Well,
but
you said you're
I love earth.
extremely passionate.
Extremely.
So
Like
you
I love
hard.
this
you
earth.
You live hard, you love hard.
I love this fucking earth and I love people so much and I love life so much.
You have lived fast and hard.
Yeah.
And
Because I
you
love life
hard.
so much, because
Yes.
it's so fun. Because it's so fun.
Therefore, you love God hard, you love your family hard, and you're extremely passionate.
Yeah, that's been it's still like that. Like I still have to.
That's very rewarding because a lot of people that go through that tend to lose.
I saw a lot of guys that were like, I don't care about nothing anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was a hard part. Like it's funny because I'll meet people right now.
That-
If
that
I tell
was-
people that been to prison,
that
they're
was
like,
your
"What? You've been
blessing.
to prison?" I think
So
there's a lot of people that are like,
That
"What?"
sounds like that was part of your blessing, you know?
There was, yeah, there was like those experiences were enlightening for me. Like maintaining that like open heartedness.
Yeah.
Is I think one of the hardest things to try to do.
100%.
Because you feel like there's so much, like you feel like it's easy to look at all the bad things that are going on and say like, oh, there's no hope. But I tried to look at it differently. Like I was like, so how did I change it? I was like, I'm healthy, I'm intelligent, I have a mom that loves me, I have a kid out there that I can still, like I had hope. Hope was the biggest thing. Like I had hope. I believed that I could change this.
And you prayed a lot about it?
So I prayed a lot. I was gonna say, God, yeah, I started praying a lot about everything. And when I started praying a lot about everything, I know it sounds crazy, but like I would, like the more I prayed, the more I saw things happening, you know?
It does not sound crazy.
And that led to like
you.
my wife, to me finally like picking up the phone right before I was gonna get out that last time and being like, hey, I want to see my daughter. And there's nothing that nobody's gonna tell me about this. Like I need to get back in this. Like starting with that, it was like I felt like that was like the number one thing I needed to do was first of all,
Good
like
for you.
be with God, like believe that God was on my side, and then kind of be like, I gotta get back in my daughter's life. Cause that was a very like dark cloud that followed me forever. I was like, cause I knew that, like I said, I got my girl pregnant on purpose. right? So I was like,
That one still shocked me
yeah.
a little.
Well, you have no idea. I got her pregnant this time on purpose too with the 5-year-old that we have.
What?
She's still not happy about that.
I want to hear her. I might bring her on to hear her side of the story.
Oh, she would.
Like, this would be
She
great.
would.
I should have brought you both because
Yeah,
this
right?
would have been.
She gets embarrassed when I say these things. She's like, "Why do you tell people about you did that?" But it's the truth. It's the truth. It's all the
No, and
truth.
that's what we want. We want your raw and honest truth,
And,
and I appreciate you for sharing it.
Thank you. I don't think I've actually given my story like that in an interview, like unless it's been like personal, but not on camera and not on a mic, you know. And again, that we can be here forever. I don't know what our time frame is, but we could be here forever talking about all this stuff.
No, and I just for me, it's incredible to listen to stories like yours because I can't put myself in your shoes because I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
For instance, I was on the opposite side of you where I was like, you know, that kid who studied all the time. I did go to parties and I have made my mistakes, but not to that level, not to that extreme.
Right.
I grew up in a very safe environment that didn't lead to that. So I do agree with what you said about being a product of your environment.
Yeah. It has a lot.
It has a lot to do with
it. Does affect, you know,
and
it does affect.
It affects a lot.
It does, and obviously I'm a product of my environment by decisions that I made to get into that environment. Like I said very early, I was like, yeah, this is, you know, it was like, you know, you grew up, like I said, I grew up to the hip hop. I was like, yeah, fuck
But
that
I
thug
also-
life, you know. So you were like into that, but
I don't think anyone should. I don't think anybody should judge anybody because I don't know what was going on through your head at that time. I'm nobody to be in your
stupidity,
shoes.
ignorance. No, I'm just
It
kidding.
could be whatever it is,
Yeah.
but you know, we've all made our mistakes. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
And you are here today because of everything you've been through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somehow, some way, I managed to not die in the process and not completely lose my mind, which happens just as much as dying. I think like a lot of guys lose their mind or lose their hope, and just kind of give up. I didn't give up, and I think that that's a big part of it. But like, yeah, that led to like me that last time kind of being like, yo, I'm gonna get out and do the right thing, and doors just opened. Like my wife now was just like, well, I'm actually in the middle of like separating with the guy that she was with, which you asked me like how with the other kid, 18-year-old, which is Machi. He's my stepson, and we were in the process of that. Like he was in the process of that separation, and I was given the opportunity not to like get with her, but to help her go through her breakup in the process of trying to also learn how to reintegrate myself with my daughter
And become the father you always wanted.
and that kind of led to that actually happening. Like, so in the process of kind of just me,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, if that was a very interesting moment, which given that opportunity, because it was like I saw that she was not in a good state because she was going through that separation with that guy.
But you weren't either. So
I
you
wasn't
guys-
either, but you know what? I was strong mentally because I had already made that decision, and I had been seeing the
And you both-
rewards of that decision manifesting themselves already in my
Incredible.
work release and in my release from prison. I had already started seeing all these things happening, and I was like, I'm stronger than I've ever been in my life at this moment.
Yeah.
And I was actually able to use that solidity, so like that strength and character to help her, because it was funny because she was like, this is not a good time. If you really want to know, she was like, this is not a good time to get back in your daughter's life.
Right.
Like,
And you're
I'm
like,
going
"No."
through a big process right now. Like, your daughter's known another guy like as her dad for a long time. And I had to step back and be like, okay, I don't want my daughter to think that I'm the reason why they're separating. Because it was all coinciding, like me getting out,
Wow.
her breaking up, and me like demanding to be in my daughter's life. So what we did was we agreed to just become friends again and kind of slowly start that process with me and my daughter. And it actually led to like us like realizing that we still loved each other.
I think that was the best thing you guys did.
And my daughter kind of saw me in a different way. And then my son, who I call him my son because he's my stepson, was kind of
your
like,
son.
yeah, he's my son. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been with both of them. I mean, now
Yeah, he's
my
your
daughter's
son.
21. I've been back to, so this all ended 7 years ago. So
You're
it's been
bonus
7.
dad to that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 years ago was when I got out. So you're saying, when did this all change? It's been 7 years now since I kind of like got out of prison and have stayed out and have not got like fallen back into that. I've had a few slip ups, like with just like kind of like, as far as like, you know, like drinking and stuff like that. And then I've been like, whoa, like it can't go down that path because it can easily like, you know, it's something that's not like, it's also part of me, you know, like kind of that.
Well, I'm proud of you.
That mentality. And now it's led to like making the music, all the music that I wrote in there, all the music that I wrote.
Do you have anything coming out soon That you.
There's we got like so me and D Notes are working on a Spanish album that we're
Cool.
recording. It should be coming out maybe sometime, maybe like February or March. I have a
Okay.
few singles I actually just released. I actually so
Okay.
talk about fulfilling the
So you're
dream.
gonna write the melody, the what is it that you call it? The sound that goes like on intros and stuff. I don't know. Maybe you want to do it for my
Oh, absolutely, I'm down.
podcast.
But so we actually speaking of my daughter, me and my daughter released a song last year together,
Yeah.
called Right Now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like little bit of a story of like what she felt waiting for me to come back as her father, and like me, and then so
Okay.
then we just released right now October 31st. We released like the EDM version of that.
Nice.
And that song's called Right Now, and you can see it anywhere, obviously, like Skinny the Fatso, like I'm Skinny the Fatso on like on all the platforms or whatever. And getting that I got my life together, I've been able to now release all the music that we started back when I told you when I was 21 that I was like, yo, let's make music, me and my boy.
Good for you.
We spent like it's that album that I'm talking about is the album that we never got to make. Is finally like coming to fruition now. And he's obviously in a different state in his life, you know what I'm saying, too, with a bunch of kids and married and all that stuff. And and yeah, like the timing is right. Like the timing is actually now, which is very interesting because
It's been a hell of a ride.
it's been insane. It's been crazy.
But I'm so glad that you got to turn your life around. Your story is incredibly, incredibly
Thank you, Cynthia.
inspiring. It's a testament to who you are as a person because when you meet you, you're like, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
But let alone do you expect all this
Yeah, and
from you.
it's kind of honestly now, like looking back at everything that we just spoke about, it kind of makes me a little bit like, that's kind of what is the topic of the
Yeah.
conversation, because I would really want to say that there's so many good things that happened along those lines, but it seems to be like that's the story of like redemption, right?
Yeah.
That's like what it feels like when you're like, how did we get here? I feel like, wow, like through all of that,
So
which
if
is
you
what I guess like accents like a person has had to go through to get to like a point where now I'm sitting here with Cynthia having an interview about me, right?
Yeah.
You know?
So what would you
Um,
title just to kind of wrap things up? That book you eventually want to write one day that I'm gonna read.
yeah.
What would you title it?
I don't know. I haven't really thought of it. I've thought of like there's a couple names out there like Methods to the Madness, or like
Oh.
Epic Fail. No, or like I don't know. I've thought of like
Definitely not a big fail
Yeah, no, I know.
because your story ended up actually
No, I know.
being not an epic fail,
Yeah.
but one of, like
Um,
you said, maybe like redemption, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's always important, being able to come back and being able to share your story. And a lot of people are going to be able to relate to what you're going through because there's people out there that have lived what you've lived, people that haven't and don't
Yeah.
understand it, people that are going to judge you for
Yeah.
the way you've chosen to live your life. But you know what? You've been able to turn it around, and a lot of good has come out of that.
Absolutely. And you know what? I want to say that being that I'm actually here speaking and saying this with you, that like it's important for us as people to not lose hope in one another. Because really that's the reason that I think
Yeah.
that we do anything like um, like I met a lot of incredible guys in prison, and I've met a lot of incredible and there's a lot of incredible people everywhere. I've met a lot, like,
Yeah.
I mean, the friends
In
that I made
life.
before then
Mhm.
are still lifelong friends of mine.
Yeah.
And like our your parents, if you have any, whether they're like parents,
care of
whether
them.
like those things are important, because
Yeah.
I think that I've glorified here all this like journey
Yeah.
and this like roller coaster of a life. But we're at a moment right now, at least at the moment that we're having this interview right now, that it's like we need to really like take a step back and really realize that we're so important to one another, and that we need to like really love one another, and not
100%.
like not be so petty about like how we talk, not be so judgmental, not be so like, exactly like you're saying, like you came in here, I think that little did you expect that like
I didn't know what to expect.
what to expect, right?
Mhm.
But like I think that someone will look at me and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy's this and that." It's like you don't really know my story.
You don't know
You
your
don't know who
story.
I am. You don't know my background, like who my parents were. You know what I'm saying? Like how I grew up with the you know what I'm saying, with the like where I come from, and
Yeah.
why is it that I talk the way I talk, or I say the things I say. And now we live in a society where it's very quick to like put
To
up
judge
put like
without
label
knowing.
someone and be
Yeah.
like, oh, why is this guy like acting like that? Or oh, he thinks he could do like you don't know. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I'm more in like I think that I've me being here today is a testament to what the good and what the culture of like music or hip hop or like or música latina or Latinos in general
Yeah.
or humanity stands for,
Yeah.
which is like those like kind of surviving and overcoming so many adversities
Yeah.
and not like being like oh like yeah the world sucks but the world's also beautiful, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad things but there's a lot of good things, and by crying about the bad things, only crying about the bad things, like you
Everything
got to
should be
figure out
taken
solutions,
with
you
a
know what I'm
grain of
saying? Like
salt.
we got to figure out like so that's what I've done now, you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm here and I'm having this interview. Honestly, it took bravery on my part
It did.
to come here and talk to you because I've been out of that like being when you were like gun ho and like yeah I'm gonna do all these things. Now it's like you have all these like reservations or you think that there's like how am I gonna do this properly or how am I gonna come across to
Yeah.
people, and it's scary. It's scary, but I think that it's so important to realize that the reason we do these things, at least the reason I do them, is to show an example of like how you can overcome, right?
Yeah.
And represent what is good in the world, not what's bad. You know what I'm saying? Um, I
I
don't know.
get you. No, well, good for you. I like I said, I think you're here for a purpose today, a reason. I don't think, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but overall, I think what we
What do you
do,
think, Cynthia?
I think,
Yeah, well, you were about
here
to
we
say
go.
it. You were about to say
I
it.
think that, it's, as you say, we can make mistakes because we're human, but I think it's how we redeem ourselves and how we come back that
Right.
matters.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
Because life is that journey.
Life is
Like
that
it is that journey.
journey.
Like you were saying, like you've had a safer environment, but
Yeah.
I'm a hunt. So that's what part of how you asked me how I
I have
forgave
my
myself. You
story
know how I
too.
forgave myself? I
Yeah.
forgave myself because I was like, everybody's done. Like everybody has shitty moments,
Oh, well, of
or where
course.
they've done something that they're not proud of, or that
Yeah.
they've thought thoughts that are not cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. Like I know that I'm not bad.
Yeah.
And I know that people think like that they can be bad because like we all think negative thoughts sometimes, you know what I'm saying? But then it's like what you do with that afterwards. Like, am I gonna act on that or am I gonna change that?
Yeah.
Am I gonna like put some effort into like trying to push
No,
the good thoughts out?
I'm 100% with you on everything, and it's so sad that I have to wrap this
I
up
know.
because
I've been talking nonstop too. I told you I took off.
because we have had such a good conversation, and I think there's so many valuable pieces that everyone can learn from your story and other people's stories, whether you've been through it or not.
Absolutely.
You could definitely grab something from there and learn from it. And I've learned a lot from you from sitting here today.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me on as
Yeah.
a guest.
Anytime. And next season we'll bring you and your wife back. I want to
Uh,
hear that second
oh, that'll
side.
be great. Bring my daughter too. She'll have a lot to talk about.
We'll have the family.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. Go follow Skinny and we'll listen to more of his story soon when we
Absolutely.
launch this episode. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.
And see you next time on Honestly Kidding.
Later.